So today I want to take some time and debunk a common toxic marriage advice that you need to reject with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. Once you hear that advice, just start running, run as fast as your legs can carry you. And what is that piece of so-called advice? Well, if your husband is not beating you and he's still providing, even if he's not being a good husband in other ways, don't leave that marriage, because you don't even know what God has done for you. What if you go outside there? There might be other people that are going through worse things. He's not beating you, he's providing. Just stay. My dear, do not make the mistake of thinking that a relationship is abusive or toxic only if there is beating and lack of provision involved. There are actually different kinds of abuse, and it could range from emotional, psychological, financial, sexual, verbal, and so on. These other forms of abuse can just be equally and even more damaging than physical abuse, and some of them have very terrible consequences. So let's break down some of these forms of abuse, because a lot of women that are in abusive relationships, they may not even know it. They'll feel like as long as he's not beating me and he's providing, maybe he's just, when he's angry, he just does it. It's just his personality. Abuse is not a personality. It is a choice that somebody is deciding to make. So what are some types of, marital abuse that go beyond physical? So number one, we can talk about emotional abuse, and some examples are constant criticism and belittling of your person. For example, oh, you are worthless without me. If you leave this marriage, nobody's even going to want you. Or for example, they can gaslight you. If you say something, I don't like what you did, they'll be like, what are you talking about? That never happened. Is that how you read meaning into everything? I was just joking. You're just imagining. What are you talking about? You're just imagining things. And another example of emotional abuse is if they're withholding affection or love as punishment. So if they feel like you're not doing what they want, then they just cut you off totally. That is emotional abuse. And some impacts of emotional abuse include chronic self-doubt, anxiety, depression, loss of self-esteem and identity. And you begin to feel trapped and hopeless. So you look at yourself and you're like, oh, it's true. I've added weight. Nobody will ever want me. Or maybe am I imagining things? Why is it that I get so emotional? Every little thing I read meaning. Maybe I'm the one reading meaning. Maybe I need to go and work on myself. So that's a dangerous place to be in, where you begin to lose your sense of self and agency, and you don't even know, what is a red flag or not. Another example of abuse is psychological abuse. So for example, if they're always threatening that they're going to harm you or they're going to abandon you, like if you talk to anybody or tell anybody what's going on, I'm going to cut you and the children off. You will not be, I will not provide for your needs and all that. Or if they're always threatening you and telling you that you should stop connecting with your friends and your family, this is a family business. You should, whatever happens in this family, stays in this family. You cannot tell anybody what is going on. If I hear it outside, you are in trouble. That is psychological abuse. And we're going to talk about some of the impacts. People that are being abused psychologically begin to, develop and show symptoms of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. They begin to have panic attacks. They might have, insomnia or sleeplessness, difficulty trusting other people or even making decisions. So you begin to second guess yourself. You don't even know whether you are safe. The cortisol levels are always high. At that point, those kind of hormonal situations in the body lead to all manner of sicknesses and diseases that we can't even start talking about here. Then another form of abuse that is pretty much common is financial abuse. And some examples include where the man is controlling all the money and denying you access to funds. So you may say, oh, my husband is a banker or whatever. We are very wealthy, but you can't even go into the account and withdraw money. You don't have access to money and you are not allowed access. It could be in form of sabotaging your employment or your education. So for example, there are some men that will be like, oh, once I see that my wife, she's about to get a promotion at her job and all that, I'll just get her pregnant, or if she says now I'm ready to go back to school, you get her pregnant. Or there are different ways that they sabotage, but one common way that many men do it is that they get the person pregnant. Sometimes you see men that will go to the office to cause trouble. They don't have any shame, just so that the woman will lose her job. Unfortunately, my father was someone that used to do those kind of things. He can go to my mom's office and cause trouble. There are men that are like that. So you might feel like, oh, he never beat her and all that. But when you keep doing things to sabotage the person's opportunity, because going to that kind of workplace, they'll be like, this woman, please, we don't even want this kind of problem. Go and solve your marital problems at home. Such a woman can lose her job, right? So another example is forcing financial independence. So for example, having the woman not to even work, saying you cannot work, I will provide. Even if the person is providing, right? The fact that he's providing still means that you are the person's mercy. So the person that feeds you today can choose to starve you tomorrow. So that is if you chose by your own volition that you want to depend on him, it's one thing, and it's not even something that I advise. But there are many women who actually want to work. Some of them, the men may be like, okay, because I want you to stay home and take care of the children. But even if it is something that the woman can do online when the children are at school, you find some men that will say no. It is a form of financial abuse. And some of the impacts of that include economic instability and vulnerability on the side of the woman. She will be unable to leave the relationship if need be due to lack of resources, and it ends up causing her long-term poverty and reduced career prospects. There are many women that they feel like, okay, I'm married and all that, but they don't have any, pension laid up for them. Their husbands are working and they are having access to government pension, but the woman doesn't have such a backing for herself. So another form of abuse is sexual abuse. So for example, a man can be the kind of person that coerces his wife to have sex, without her consent. So it can be like, hey, you owe me, you are my wife. Where do you want me to go? You have to do it. And he's not even looking at what is the reason why she is being reluctant. He's just making her to do it out of a sense of duty. She may do it. He may not have pried her legs open and all that, but emotional blackmail that goes into it. It is a form of abuse. And then some of them may use it as a form of use sex as a form of punishment, where some of them can actually be aggressive with their wives to hurt the wife, or they can choose to say, okay, I'm not doing this with you even if the woman wants it. It can come in any form of ways, right? And then also ignoring her boundaries that she has. If she says, okay, I'm not comfortable doing this kind of thing, the man can go out there, if he's into pornography and all that, and he'll be like, I want you to do it this way, do this for me, do this, stuff like that. Or even if she says, I'm not comfortable with this kind of statements or whatever, if the man is always imposing and insisting, it is a form of abuse. Okay. And then some of the impacts of that include trauma, shame, and sexual dysfunction. So increased risk of STIs if the man is someone that goes out, and unwanted pregnancies as well. And there are deep emotional scars and fear of intimacy. There are women that are going through that in marriage. And then another form of abuse is verbal abuse. So, for example, calling the woman names, yelling or mocking, whether it's privately or in public, using words to instill guilt and fear, making you to feel like you're less than a human and all that. Those are all forms of verbal abuse. And some of the impacts include erosion of the woman's confidence and your self-worth, constant stress and emotional exhaustion. You're always walking on eggshells because you don't know the one you would do, and they'll start calling you names. And then you begin to internalize negative beliefs about yourself. So in summary, my point is this: telling a woman to overlook all these other ramifications of abuse just because the man is not being physical about it, or the man is providing. It's just basically telling the woman to give up her agency as a human. It's just telling her to sign up for a form of modern day slavery, right? Because if you're telling her that your feelings don't matter, it doesn't matter, just sit down there. That is a form of slavery. That is what slaves went through in the past that led to the eradication of that. So, my dear, all these forms of abuse have a whole lot of impacts on your body. They have a whole lot of impact on your soul. They have a whole lot of impact on your spirit. They have impact on you, on your person, everything that makes you up who you are. So don't ever subscribe to that. Even if the person is providing and he's not physical, if you have come to a point where your body is crying out, every part of your veins is crying out and saying, this is not safe, it's time for you to start making the necessary adjustments and plans to live in a way that is safe for you. Okay? So I just thought I would clarify on that. Thanks for watching.